I've had a recipe on my website for a while now that is called restaurant style beef and broccoli, and it's like a copycat version of Chinese takeout beef and broccoli, but it's way better. Tonight I'm going to make it for dinner, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to use Brussels sprouts instead of broccoli. And usually I use flank steak, but they had some beef stir fry on sale at the grocery store, which they said was like London broil that they sliced up. So I'm going to use this instead of slicing up flank steak. You can print this recipe on my website, mrshappyhomemaker.com. Just go to my website and type in beef and broccoli on the little search bar at the top. Or you can even Google Mrs. Happy Homemaker beef and broccoli and it will pop right up. So first we're going to start off with a marinade. 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. And you can find this in the international section of your grocery store. 4 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 heaping teaspoon of sriracha, 2 heaping teaspoons of cornstarch, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and half a teaspoon of ground ginger. And I'm just going to whisk this up to combine it. I've got my beef strips here in a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. I'm just going to pour this marinade over top. Now I'm going to try to pull as much of the air out of it that I can, and I'm going to seal it up. And I'm going to put this in my refrigerator and let it marinate for at least 2 hours or up to 8 hours or even overnight. I'll let my meat marinate overnight. Let's go ahead and finish the rest of this recipe. In my bowl here, I have 2 pounds of fresh Brussels sprouts, and I have already trimmed the ends off them. Brussels sprouts take longer to cook than broccoli does, so I'm going to cook these up in some boiling water for about 7 to 10 minutes until they're starting to become a little bit tender. Got my beef in a colander, draining in the sink, draining off that marinade, and I'm going to go ahead and make my sauce that is going to cook with the food here in a minute. So to a bowl, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, 2 tablespoons of chicken broth, 1/3 cup of oyster sauce, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and some salt and pepper to taste. And I'm just going to whisk this together, and then I'm going to set it aside. And my Brussels sprouts have cooked. I let them boil in that water for about 10 minutes, and they are fork tender. I've got my pan here on high heat. I'm going to add some oil to the bottom just to cover the bottom. I'm going to add my beef strip to the pan. And I'm going to spread this out. And I'm going to let this cook on high heat for 1 minute without stirring it. Now you're going to want to go ahead and transfer this out of the pan into a plate and set it aside. To my little bowl here, I'm going to add a few cloves of minced garlic. I minced up like 6, 7, 8 cloves of garlic. And I've got a heaping tablespoon of fresh ginger that I have shredded up. I actually used a little grater to mince it up. I'm going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes to here, and about a teaspoon of oil. I'm using vegetable oil, but peanut oil, canola oil, they all work too. And I'm going to mix this all together. Now we're going to add a couple more tablespoons of oil to the pan. I'm going to add my Brussels sprouts that I've already boiled until they're nice and tender. I'm going to let this cook up for about a minute or 2. And I'm going to take this garlic ginger mixture that we just made. I'm going to add this. Now we're going to add the beef that we cooked back into the pan. We're going to mix that all together. Now we're going to whisk this sauce that we made a little while ago, and we're going to pour it into the pan. And stir that all together. And we're going to let this cook on medium heat for about 2 or 3 minutes until the sauce finishes up, and that's all there is to it. So here is my beef and Brussels sprouts, made the exact same way that my beef and broccoli is, but with Brussels sprouts. And this is the very first time I have ever used Brussels sprouts in this recipe, so I'm curious to try it. And take me a little nibble just before I serve dinner. Just a little nibble. Oh, that's hot. That is delicious. I might have to make it with Brussels sprouts instead of broccoli more often. The only reason I did it this way this time was because I had some Brussels sprouts in my fridge that needed to be used. So, and I'm going to top this with some diced green onions, and dinner is served.